vote for some kind of fucking
That
freedom.
would be the dream.
Vote for the fucking Greens. You know, anyone that says to me, I mean, for all this we talk about, oh, you know, there's political disillusionment and blah blah blah, and there's nothing between Labour and the Conservatives, and we need a new party and all that. Pretty much everything that you could fucking want decently would be covered by voting for the Greens.
I mean, who's that fella, Alex Salmond? Does he cry wanking over the fucking sun every day?
I don't think Salmond wants independence.
You don't?
No, I think he's achieved his possession of maximum power within a kind of devolved Scotland.
Do David Cameron in 30 seconds.
David Cameron is a drop of pretence. You know what I mean? So there was the old pretence of, you know, the great quote from Cameron: "I'm not concerned if I become unpopular." You're like, wait a minute, mate, you're the fucking Prime Minister. You're supposed to be standing for re-election. But, you know, his interests, that's interesting. He's told you his interests aren't in getting votes and getting re-elected. His interests are in pushing through business interests. His interests are making sure as much public money goes into private hands as possible, right? And he said that explicitly. Why is he not concerned about getting votes? Because Tony Blair was concerned about getting votes. Margaret Thatcher was concerned about getting votes to push forward their agenda. Why is David Cameron not concerned about getting votes? David Cameron's not concerned about getting votes because he knows the other party are now no different from him. For the first time, they have completely the same agenda, to the point where George Osborne can come out and announce things just out of the fucking blue, like people are going to have to wait a week before they get any benefit payments, and Ed Balls within minutes will be on television going, "Yeah, sounds fair enough." You know, there's absolutely nothing between them, so they don't need to give a fuck who gets elected anymore. House
of Lords, quickly.
Well, you know, if you have an unelected fucking chamber in a democracy, you know,
they are the skull fuckers, mate. They are the one. What's with the fucking Queen? What's her gig?
Well, they're just a sort of pageantry and all that stuff. All the kind of show off elements of royalty sort of come along as they decreased in official power, and their power is as part of the spectacle. So, you know, they paint with broader strokes now, and we have these big giant weddings and births and so on. But really they're this incredibly conservative force reinforcing the British class system. You know, and that's why they're tolerated, the idea that we have hierarchies, which of course we don't, you know.
But I mean, she's a hairy, goat-legged fucker. Who she's skull fucking the country. She's like they. We said it. She's feeding off our pain.
That's the best case scenario. If she actually was a lizard skull fucking people, it would be better than what she's doing in reality, which is like presiding over this fucking incredibly unequal society as a figurehead of this incredibly unequal society. And the greatest trick of the royals is they've convinced people of their own irrelevance. I mean, if you do a joke about the fucking royals now, people are like, "Oh, that's a bit passé, isn't it?" And you're like, they own half the fucking country. They take a considerable proportion of the fucking wealth of the country, and you consider that irrelevant. It's a bit like they're really what their shtick is. They're a bit like stage magicians. And really, that look on their face that you try and place when you see them at the fucking weddings and stuff, that's just a really shit magician who can't believe how well this is going, you know?
But they're like okay, she's connected to God. David Aaronovitch said she has direct correspondence with God. she has a Geordie Cockney army, Balmoral, Sandringham, Buckingham Palace, best real estate. She's got like fucking knights, lords. She's got money. She's got gold. She owns mines. She owns land. 52 nations. But she's powerless. How does that work?
Sure, but also I mean they are powerful. And there's that whole thing. I mean, like Abu Hamza, you know, she talks to the government about why is Abu Hamza still in the country and stuff like that. They're not politically disengaged. Of course, they're not.
But they like apart like you've got. She's the most powerful person in the world. You know, Barack Obama is just in office. You know, this is a birthright. We got Prince fucking George, mate. He's got 50 armed bodyguards around him.
Well, the Director General of the BBC had to stand down because a show was edited to look like she stormed out of a meeting in a huff when actually she stormed into it in a huff. You know, that gives you some idea of the level of power. And it's bizarre because it's, you know, it's surreal. We live in a supposedly egalitarian society. We live in a supposed democracy, and you know we have a completely
it's like where's the wizards and the centaurs? What about you were talking last night? Agnostic Christians. Who are they?
The Gnostics.
Yeah.
The Gnostics were like an early Christian sect who believed that this was hell, like our earth was hell, and that basically that our pain was being fed off by a thing called the demiurge. So the earth wasn't created by God, it was created by this kind of demonic, satanic force called the demiurge, who fed off all our pain.
Prince Harry. What about Prince Harry?
Prince Harry, man. What the idea of selling someone as a murderer is quite interesting. Do you know what I mean? That they've thought of that in PR terms and thought, well, how can we punt this guy up as a mass murderer of people in other countries? Yeah, fuck it. Send him in a fucking.
And they brought in that gaming angle as well. That he was just gaming, and
Jesus, I mean,
he said he was a Taliban leader that he killed, but apparently it was just some children collecting firewood. But no one knew.
But I mean, the idea that that's a considered publicity gambit. I kill, seems pretty amazing.
But they quite like it that he's out in Las Vegas, like gambling and that. There was a lot of, if you're looking at the newspaper and seeing that, a lot of people think, lucky fucking get.
Yeah. Well, I bet after the fucking Vegas thing, I bet the first conversation he had with security was, what, someone let those girls live? who fucking slept up here?
Prince George.
Well, you just have more generations of it until people fucking wake up, won't you? He's got fucking 50 armed bodyguards.
This is never
the reason for
never
that
going to
is
end.
that he can lock a bodyguard with a kind of unearthly stare, and they'll slowly start to put their fucking gun into their mouth. So they need to have 50 around him. And in the Omen, it was just a fucking Rottweiler.
Yeah, they'll all be chipped. Appalling attacks on the disabled through things like bedroom tax, where completely discriminated against.
I think they're going to kill a lot of disabled people. I mean, they already are killing a lot of disabled people, and I think it's linked into this idea of if you're not productive in our terms in society, then fuck you. So
Ian Duncan Smith.
They hate able-bodied people who they don't see as productive, right? What the fuck do you think they think of disabled people who in their fucked up reality?
I mean, they've just walked into privatisation, the outsourcing of the NHS. We got £5 billion contract this week up for Richard Branson wants it, Circle. I mean, that was unthinkable.
Yeah. But also people's passivity in the face of it is quite unthinkable.
Yeah.
You would have thought if you'd said a while ago that they were going to break up the NHS, that there would be fucking riots.
Yeah, I mean, where are the unions? So we see this kind of like that we live in this perceived society where we have freedom, democracy, and that.
Well, we're founded on exceptionalism. I mean, that's what we are. So we have a whole thing of why is it terrorism when someone attacks us, but it's not terrorism where we attack them? By any objective definition of terrorism, Britain and America commit acts of terrorism every day, and instead we have conferences every couple of years where people sit about and try and argue out definitions that mean things that they do, but not things that we do. So we're all about making exceptions for ourselves. What Americans are. We're a client state of America. We're an aircraft carrier for their fucking nukes, and we're a rubber stamp for their fucking aggressive wars. But we're not an empire. And
they're scared because they think that the Americans and the British might come. Can you imagine that?
If you look at Palestine, it's actually a fucking. It's actually a kind of trial run for a lot of new defence technologies, and lots of stuff that gets sold. So, like, remember the full body scanners that came in American airports and stuff? They come from Israeli technology. The Israeli have a lot of big defence companies, and basically they try them out on a live human population. And when you see them fucking bombing Palestine in one of their periodic fucking raids on the news on CNN or something, that's essentially the fucking shopping channel for these people. That's like, oh, those work. Fuck, great. The City of London is a tax haven in itself, and it's constructed to attract hot money into Britain, and it's constructed to attract criminal money as well as legal money into Britain.
On our internet, looking at our information, big corporation, Tyrell, Serco, checking you out.
I don't know, I think Snowden's for real, right? And that's obviously like... it seems to be what's happening and stuff, but why do they allow that information to become public? I mean, is it a thing of so that we all start behaving as if we're being surveyed? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, do you think you're being followed?
No.
Have you been chipped? Do you think you're being chipped?
No.
The Bilderberg. Now, I always say about conspiracy and conspiracy theories, I always say that even if you thought you knew the truth, you wouldn't even be close. And I often use like the IRA and like the British Army killing people. But the Bilderberg, what's your thoughts on Bilderberg?
I think that's like, I mean, you've got to accept that big interests fucking do meet up and make agreements, right? But Robert Anton Wilson says an interesting thing when he goes, most big conspiracies last 4 to 5 years. Most good conspiracies, he says. You think, yeah, that's probably right. Things like, let's fix the LIBOR rate and make a bunch of money, that probably lasts for a sort of 4 or 5 year period. 4 or 5 years, it just happens to be, you know, the time a president or prime minister spends in office, do you know what I mean? Where they can force through as much money making stuff as possible. So I think that's how conspiracies work.
But that's how also scandals work, isn't it? With like MPs, you think, oh, just wait till tomorrow, something else will have happened by then.
Yeah, that's a much shorter scale, but there's that thing of, there are big groups of people whose interests mesh who go out and try and make money. I mean, that's what conspiracies are, really. Most conspiracy theories I don't believe in. What most people would call a conspiracy theory, I don't believe in.
Barack Obama?
He's actually been really damaging. I mean, as was said by a few people at the time, because he had more credibility, he was able to be a lot worse than Bush. And if you look at what he's done, Bush's thing was essentially to intern people without trial in Guantanamo and to ignore people's legal and human rights. Obama has transferred that into killing people with drones and just getting rid of the whole fucking rendition process by fucking killing them on the spot.
But even with the NSA thing, he just come out and said, "No, we're not doing it," and it was like a blatant lie. It's all right. They do what they want. It's anything.
But he's so much more plausible, and he's so much more media plausible than Bush. You've got to remember, Bush was playing to the public a lot of the time. That whole I have underestimated people. That plays great in America. They like people to act stupid.
But Barack Obama, he does the Charlie Chaplin speech every day.
Yeah.
Do you know that I believe that his rhetoric, his narrative is always very sort of like.
But it's rhetorical. It's all this stuff about hope and change and you know.
People buy into that shit though. They're like, they're gone. They're in there. They're with him. What's the meaning of life, Frankie?
I think the meaning of life is that possibly the universe is conscious, and that we're all just various different types of receiver for this kind of universal consciousness, and probably humans are quite a good and bold receiver for it.
So what's the future of mankind?
Could be anything. Could still be anything. I like to think that we're at that point in the movie, you know, where everybody's lost all hope. Do you know what I mean? And we've got these fucking great beasts stalking us. The corporations, which call themselves human beings in legal terms, you know, they have the rights of humans, and that's why they exist as they do now, and we've just got to find out a way of killing the monsters, you know.
Coming soon from the team that brought you Iraq, what critics described as devastating.
There will be no British standing army in the Gulf.
Afghanistan, so bad it should be illegal.
Where they're trained in the tactics of terror.
Iraq 2, the Phantom Dossier, mind and body blowing.
Iraq has chemical and biological weapons.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
And Libya, the masterpiece in confusion and ineptitude.
A bloody massacre in Benghazi.
Now comes their latest multi-billion-pound blockbuster disaster in ISIS, the utterly predictable backlash. Starring David Cameron as Tony Blair in an explosive role. And introducing Nick Clegg as the Yes Man.
Yes.
A tale of love, of passion, of bravely risking other people's lives. With non-stop action, bombs, and even more bombs than ever before. Did we mention bombs? Only 1 million extras killed, maimed, or injured in the making of this production. No politicians were harmed. This is one real-life disaster you simply can't afford. This is Lib Lab Con, Britain's failed one-party state. Already nominated for biggest waste of £60 billion. Who wants to go to university for free anyway?